Right. Now, one of the databases that quite popular in relational database world is MySQL. And you can, read about it like there are many, uh, applications rely on MySQL database as the backend database and quite popular and useful. There are a couple of versions. Usually, there are free version as well as commercial version. Usually, free version we known as Community Edition, which you can directly download from MySQL official website. And there are some commercial, versions as well. And earlier, this was, open source, and then there were some issues, and there are like, some people, those who are originally worked with the MySQL, they have a separate version, which sometimes when you install MySQL, you will see the same version. Um, we will also going to look at um, how MySQL could be used in different versions, right? But usually when we talk about MySQL, we talk about it as free and open source database, originally developed in Sweden, and now later Sun Microsystem actually bought this, and Oracle is the one actually handling. And there's another version which is, I told you, like there were some place separately develop MySQL and known as MariaDB, because originally once the Oracle bought this, there was a separate branch we call fork developed under MariaDB. Right now, if I look at the capabilities, like this could be used in web application framework. Commonly, you will see there are like languages goes with together with this database. For example, LAMP or SAMP, we use some packages which actually install everything together. So LAMP is normally in web application development. We talk about Linux, Apache, MySQL, and some other programming language such as Perl, PHP, or Python could be used. Right, and then there are many web-driven applications you can see. MySQL is used, and even Facebook, Twitter, YouTube also partly use MySQL. So the knowledge on MySQL is, I think, quite important, right? If you are on to implementations, right? So I think that's enough. Let's go to my plan. So I'm going to give you a brief introduction to MySQL. At the same time, I'm trying to show you like how to install them while we are working on it, and how to connect to the database and disconnect, because usually MySQL can be considered as a server, which we have to start the server in the beginning, and then once you finish the work, you can disconnect it. Then we can talk about the basic queries, like how can manipulate data in MySQL database, as well as we also going to look at like how to create to use databases. Right. General thing we have discussed. Right. It's a popular open source database and can handle very large database, and the performance really, really fast. And why people prefer MySQL? It's almost free, and compared to the cost that you have to spend on Oracle commercialized database, it will be much cheaper. And this could be used for you can use command line, meaning like shell, to create tables, query tables. I will show you how you can do this, which is quite useful, and you can write it as a script file, which I'm going to also demonstrate, and then you can populate the databases, and then you can also going to use with together with the other The connectors like JDBC is if you want to connect your database with Java, for example. Right, now let's look at the connections first. Now, usually MySQL can be used in multiple ways. One is graphical way, where you can create and populate database in the graphical representation. But since this is the master course, I would like to focus on more advanced usage of this, which I prefer to work with interactive shell, which is like a command line where you can use commands to create tables, insert tables, and so on. Right. Now, normally when you open up a sample session, so usually it looks like this, right? I will show you how we are going to do this, but usually you will have some texts, and then there will be a prompt, which you can see here. This is called the prompt, where here you can see MySQL prompt, and then prompt actually we can type MySQL commands to work with. So that's how we can open up the session. So when you open up, actually in the command line, we can say MySQL, and then when you want to quit, you can either use quit or exit, which is how you can connect to the MySQL server, and then you disconnect from the MySQL server. Right, now let me show you how we could do this part. Now, one thing is you have to have MySQL installed in your machine. So I'm going to assume that you don't have MySQL. So I'm going to show you like how you could do this by installing several things together, which is called SAM, which I will share the link in the chat. You can click on this. If you have already installed, you don't have to do anything. So please go to this website. I put the link in the chat. And then I will show you what we are going to do. So, so in this particular case, we are going to use SAM, which we have, web development bundle. We used to say we have Apache, the web server. MariaDB is, I told you, like it's same as MySQL, separately developed once Oracle acquired it. So basically everything will be the similar. Then you can use any other programming language, PHP or Perl, so on. So go to downloads, click on download and download, whatever the a version that suits to you. So in my case, I'm going to prefer the latest version. Click and download. And once you finish that part, just let me know by raising your hands. Right. While you do this, I will go to my shell. So, okay, so I have SAMP installation. I have downloaded in my machine. So now I'm going to, extract this. You can, extract, you can even double click it. That is possible, but then better you can have a copy of it. You have to extract. Yes. So now I have double click on this one.
Sorry for interrupting. So I already have WAMP in my laptop. So is it okay?
Is that okay? Yeah. What if you have already MySQL? That is enough. What I need is only MySQL. But I'm showing the others, like those who do not have. One way to getting SQL. If you have MySQL installed, I mean, don't worry. That's all what I need.
Thank you.
I think it takes a couple of minutes, no, sir?
Yeah, it will take sometimes just follow my instructions. It's okay. It will take some time. And I have some online version where we can directly go to our coding. So this might take some time. So while it goes on the background, you can focus on what I'm trying to do here, right? Okay, so the first one is I'm going to run this as an administrator. So I will go back to my download file. Let me see. Okay, run as administrator. That is important. So I will give the permission for the installation. And once you download, you have to accept the installation. And then I will go to setup wizard. And you can think about what you need. Actually, you don't need anything except MySQL. So I will keep MySQL. I'm going to remove other parts. If you're not really sure, you can keep everything. I'm going to remove Perl as well. Yeah. So make sure that you will have MySQL there. Oh, if you're not really sure and if you have enough space in your machine, you can just continue. Right now, in this place, you have to be, check your machine. This is the default one. Usually they propose. So Annie, I can see you, so you can disconnect the video. Okay, and then, right. So this is the default one. Usually when you have installation, so you can change if you want. For example, I already have this folder. So I'm going to, put maybe our course name. So we have DS5101. I will put that. Right. So this is the folder that I'm going to install. Right. Everything else is the same. Usually it will take again a couple of minutes for the installation. So this part will take some time depending on your, the speed of your machine. And I have already asked if you have finished downloading your file, please raise your hand so that I know that you have downloaded the file successfully, because it depends on the speed of your machine, right? And also the connection speed. Right, okay. So in my one, it's almost, going to finish it. So this part sometimes a bit difficult if you're a newcomer or if you're new to, this, type of installation. So I have finished my installation almost. Okay, no, I mean, I think it's almost done. So the control panel is the one we use to, run MySQL. So I'm going to say, okay, I want to start the control panel now. I will say finish. And then, I will get a control panel like this, where you can see MySQL here. Click on start. Right. So in my case, yeah, there are some issues with my, maybe the port. I will explain that. So I'm just going to go back to the directory where we have. So I have installed inside C, DS5 and C. Actually, it should be 02, right? Anyways, I'm going, sorry. So if you are success here, you don't have really do anything. But in some case, okay, looks okay. It's up and running. So maybe I can check in the shell. So I open up my shell. I'm trying to find my shell. Right. Let me try manually. So I'm going to type CMD. CMD for the command line. And I'm getting a window like this. So I will type MySQL. Okay, maybe I will go to the right. I will explain these steps again. Okay, so now finally my interface is working, right? This is the place I want to be. So now, yeah, some of you have already raised your hands, which means you have finished your downloads. Yes. You can talk to me any time because this part should be a bit difficult, but once we set up this, then everything else will be easier for us. Let me explain again what I did. I'm going to quit from here. Right. Getting some errors. Right. So what I did, simply I double click on my download file. So I went to downloads. And actually, in my case, I run it as an administrator. And I click yes. And then what I did, I wait for the installation. So you can continue the installation, right? Now, can you lower your hands? And if you have finished installation, can you please raise your hands? That means you have downloaded and as well as you have finished installation. Right. Now, once you finish the installation, you can see your folder. Within that, you should see something like this. Right? And couple of places that you have to be very careful. The mainly we are focusing only on the SAMP control, which is we normally use to start the MySQL service. I can stop. Earlier, I actually forgot to stop. So usually it looks like this. And what we need for today's session is only database part of it. So I'm going to focus on the MySQL here. And I should be able to say start. And if everything is fine, it will show you in green color. Otherwise, it will fail. The failures could be due to many reasons. If some other program using the same port, maybe we are getting, that is usually the error we are getting. You can be solved by stopping the other program, or you use a different port. If that happens, just let me know. We can try on changing the port. Right. Okay. Can you please now, lower your hands and raise your hands if your MySQL installation is success, and then you successfully ran, start the MySQL process like this. If you come up to this point, should look at green. Okay, I'm going to ask the others. I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks. Okay, next part, once we have seen our welcome session, let's, the next part is you can see what databases you have already, or you can create using some commands. So this show databases command we use to see what databases inside the MySQL, right? So when I press enter, right, in my case, you can see there are a couple of databases available. It says database, information schema, MySQL, performance schema, MySQL, PHP, MyAdmin test, and so on. So these are like some databases already in the database. Right. Please lower your hands. If you have finished up to this point, you can raise your hands. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Okay, so the next one, let's talk about how to create a database first. So using a create database command, we can create a new database. So when I use create database WebDB, it will create a database, new database inside WebDB. If you want to just make sure whether it is successfully created, you can say show databases, this previous command.
So it's give me an error saying error 1064. You have an error in your SQL syntax.
Okay. Yeah. Can you check? So you are in the prompt, right? MySQL
Yes,
prompt.
yes.
Create spelling is correct, database correct, space, and your database name, semicolon.
Okay, now it's exist.
Okay. So when you say show databases, now you should see your database is listed. But remember, nothing inside this database, because we just created a database, right? It's empty. Finished. Shall we move to the next one? Right. Next part, once you create the database, we have to use it. Use it means earlier, now you can see here, MariaDB, it says none. None means we have not selected any database yet. So the next step is I'm going to use it. So I'm going to say, okay, use WebDB. So what happens when I say WebDB? It uses this. Now you can see that it says database change. Now MariaDB is using WebDB database. Now we have selected that database. The idea is next time when you create databases, sorry, when you create tables, the tables are created inside this WebDB. Next one. Now let's look at, we are going to learn how to create tables, because in relational database, what we have is some related tables. So we need to create tables, but let's see whether there are already tables are available. So like show databases, the command is show tables. So here I'm going to say, okay, show tables. And it says empty set because we don't have any tables yet. Yes, show tables. And there's no, and what we have is empty set. Chirag, what is going on? I'm just curious. Okay, right. Shall we move to the next one? So Ini, let me know once you have finished installation. Right. Now let's look at creating a table. Now we already know that in a table or a schema, we have a set of attributes. So usually when we define a table, we have to have a set of attributes and their data types. So when you're creating a table, we need to first figure out what are the attributes as well as what their data types are. So if you want to know, there are many data types available in MySQL, right? So if you go to MySQL data types, there are many data types, but let's talk about only what is very important. So for example, when we have data types for numbers, we have data for date and times, we have data type for string, and so on, right? So most important one, let's look at it, like for example, string data types. So when you talk about the string data type, like your name, it'll be a string, right? Usually the name, for example, we have variable size. We don't know. I mean, different name, you have different sizes. So the best one we normally use is varchar. So, we have to use either char or varchar. Varchar means variable character. Char means character, right? Why we say variable character? Because depends on how we define the number of bytes it use will be different. So when you say varchar 4, and if you didn't type anything, storage it needs is 1 byte. Let's say you have AB, you define data type as varchar 4, it'll take 3 bytes. Let's say you have ABCD, which is 4 characters, then it uses 5 bytes. So you can see, depend on what you're going to store, the storage requirement will vary. But if you say char 4, it's fixed. Even though you don't have any value, it uses 4 bytes, right? If you use 2, again, it uses 4 bytes. So that is a case that you need to remember, right? So when you say varchar 4, right? So depend on what you're going to store, you will get the storage requirement. So especially when you have fields like name and addresses, varchar is best. If you have, let's say, gender, like male, female, or M and F, then char is fixed. Mobile phone number, we know we have 10 characters always, char is best. likewise, you have to decide that, right? I'm not going to go into details of this, but I think you should be able to understand. So you can see name, I said varchar 20. That means you can go up to 20 characters. Owner, varchar 20. Species, varchar 20. This is about a pet. Sex, it's only one character. We are going to have male and female. Then birth and death, we are going to have some date formats. So the command we can have like this: create table pet. We open bracket, we type the attribute name, then data type varchar 20, comma, owner varchar 20, comma, species varchar 20, comma, character char1, birth date, comma, death date, comma, and so on. So you have to go like that, right? That when you're creating a table. So similarly, let's say if you have a fixed set of values, let's say the dog size is like, could be some 3 values, fixed values, then we use enumerator, we call enum, and we can list the possible values. It could be small, it could be medium, or it could be large. Other than that, you can have like integer values, that means number formats, we can say int4, right? Okay, so depend on the requirement, I will, with the examples, I will show you. Right. Now, the next one is primary key. We discuss in relational database models, we need to identify a field or set of fields to uniquely identify each of the records. Therefore, we have to have a primary key. So how do you define primary key? Is by putting primary key, and within the bracket you can have, in this particular case we are using just one, we can have name. And this is how we will create a table. So let's start creating. So let's create the table. So right now this is what I have. You can type with me. You have to be very careful. If you make a mistake, you have to start from the beginning. Create table pet, open bracket, then press enter. Then name varchar 20. So I have defined a field name with variable character 20. Owner varchar 20. Then species varchar 20. Then sex char1.
So in the text, what you have mentioned is capital letters for the create table and all. Is it okay? Is it?
It's not mandatory to type in capital letters, but capital letters indicate in the note that they are reserved words for MySQL.
Okay.
But when you're typing, capitalization, it's very hard, no? So
Yeah.
use,
Okay.
letters. But in the note, it's highlighted in capital letters because it refers that these are MySQL commands, right? Okay. Then birth, we have date. Then death, we have date. And finally, I will say primary key, and then I will say name. So again, I have put a bracket and a semicolon. I press enter. Fortunately, I didn't make any errors, I guess, suppose it says query okay. So please lower your hands. If you get query okay, you can now raise your hands. Okay, I'm going to Okay, now if you have done this part correctly, it should create a table within the database. To see what tables inside the database, we type show tables, and now we can see pet is inside the WebDB. Okay, so everybody now, what happened? We create a one table and we said describe pet, and it shows you the fields and the data types, whether it's allowed null values. Right now we have only one primary key, that is name. It will not allow any null values, but all the others are allowing non values according to how we have described it. I think now I can go back again to discuss a little bit of more theory. Right. Okay. Now what we have just finished is to create a table. And when you say show tables, we have seen the pet is inside. And when I see the table structure, we use describe pet. Right. Okay. Next. If you want to delete, you can delete drop table pet. Right. But I'm not going to recommend it right now, because if you do that, you have to create it again. Right. But remember the command. We can do it later on. Right. Drop table pet will delete the entire table. Right. Now let's add some data. Now adding data in according to SQL, usually it will have insert into table name and values. Within the values, we can have values for each of these columns. The first value is for the name, right? Second one is for the owner. Third one is we had a species. Then sex, gender. This is birth. Right now it's alive. Death, we don't have any value, so we will type null for that, right? So let's do that together. So I'm going to open up this. Right. I'm going to now insert some data, some values for the pet. So I'm going to say insert into pet values. I will just press enter. Within bracket, I will say Fluffy, comma, Harold, that is the owner, species, cat, sex, female, female F, the date 1999 0204. And then since we don't know any value for death, we will put null. Null means the data is missing, right? So it's a special value we use in MySQL to say that the value is not known or it's missing. Now, when I put semicolon, it's a success, one row affected. Right. If you're success, please raise your hands. Just to see the data, we can say select all from pet, should list all the values. If you have finished up to this point, please raise your hands. We insert pet values for each field. We have put the values. When we don't know values, we put null. So you can see when we say select all from pet, this is a SQL statement. Basically, we are selecting everything from pet. So we will see all the records. Okay. Have you all finished up to this point? Sana? Sorry, Shanta?
Yes, sir. I'm
Okay.
complete.
Yeah, complete. Shanta, is this the first time you are doing? I hope you have already done this, right?
No, I have done. I'm just practicing.
But what tools you are using? Are you using a graphical representative, graphical tools to create tables?
Actually, we have done with MySQL and we are not using it. We are just moved to Oracle ADG.
Ah, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
But you are maybe using some graphical tool.
Yeah, we have MySQL Studio.
Okay. Okay. Anyways. Right. Next, I want you to, there's some data. I want to populate your database with this data. So what you need to do is you have to apply the same command couple of times so that you will get the data set like this. So right now we have only one. So let's try to add the second one. So for example, second one, we have to say insert into pet. Values. We have clause. When cat male. This is 1994 03 17 and this is null. So if I go back again, select all from pet. So try to add at least couple of them. You don't have to type everything. It will take some time. Maybe let's try with first four. Let's add the first 4 rows.
So we can't see the data records.
Ah, okay, sorry.
Thanks.
Right. So let's move on to the next one. Now, first of all, now inserting data we discussed, and I hope that's clear to you. And then the next one is selecting data. I already actually used the command, but in SQL select command, usually when you are going to retrieve the data, we have a general format. So usually we have a select statement and we have to say what you are going to get. I put star to indicate that I need everything. From, we have to tell from which table. And sometimes we can put up some condition to satisfy. We have where. So in the general SQL format, we have select from where. Right. Now, for example, earlier what we did is select all from pet, which is to say that, okay, I need everything from pet table. And we'll get everything. right? In my case, I have only 5. So if I go back into my one, so when I say what I need, right? So when I say select all, it select everything. In my case, I put up only 5 rows, so it says 5 rows in the set, and then I can also put up depending on what we need, right? Now let's say I need only the name of the pet, so I can do like this. I can say, okay, select name from pet. So you can see it will select the pet name only, right? Okay, now for example, I can say, okay, select name and owner from pet. That is selection. That we can actually select depending on what we need. So when you say select all, it selects everything, right? It's everything. Now let's say we are going to put up some condition. Let's say I need to select everything from pet where, okay, when you say where, we can put up a condition. Let's say name should be browser. So we will get, depend on what we have, we can use like this. Or we can say, let's say, first one, fluffy. So then this is actually selecting depend on, some of the rows. Okay. Depend on selecting some of the rows. Right. Okay. Yeah, please raise your hand if you finish up to this point. Okay, now you can actually write some, complex queries as well. Now let's say we want to know where like whoever the animals born after 1998, right? Birth date is here, born after 1990. So we can say, okay, select all from pet where birth, okay, this is the birth date, should be greater than or equal to 1998, 1 and 1. So what it means, this will tell us those who are born after 1998. So you can actually see, depending on our requirement, we can select a particular data. Okay. Now let's see. Let me give another example. Let's say I want to get all dogs. So how should I write? I can say, okay, select all from pet where species equal dog. You see how we can use this? A more complex one. So how about, let's say I want to get a list of names or details for a female dogs. So let's say we have female dogs. So the point here is right now we have selected dog only. We have another condition. So when you need to satisfy both of them, you can use and to combine this. So for example, we can say, okay, dog and we can say sex should be female. So now you can see we have a female dog as well. Good question. Tushar asked. Now, Tushar asked a good question. The question is, how can we get all the pets who are not dead? Right? Now, how do you know the death? The value for not death is a null, right? Because it's missing. So Tushara, we can say, okay, if you want to get all the pets who are not dead, we can say, okay, select all from pet where death is null. Sorry. Death it should be is null, not equal null. This is to because that the null is a special value. So what we checked is death. Tushar, I hope you got the answer. And good question, huh? And similarly, if you need like death animals, you can say, okay, is not null. That's the best way to, compare your null values. Right. I think, yeah, we are perfect. We can go back to the slides. So everything is in the slides I will share. Now, we already discussed about selecting particular columns. We can comma separate whatever the details that we want, right? Okay, the next one. Sometimes we need to order the results. So we can say order by. So depending on the order, right? In an ascending order of the date they have birth, we can write like this. So let me go back. I can say, okay, select name and birth from pet. So if you just type it, we'll get like this. But let me check with this order by birth. So this time you can see, you will get their birth date in ascending order. Right. So the command is select name birth from pet order by birth, which gives you the pets who have born based on their birth. Similarly, if you need in a descending order, you have to add a keyword called descending, D-E-S-C. So if you do that, now you can see it is a select name birth from order, it's ascending order. Then if you say descending, D-E-S-C, you get the birth in descending order. Right, good. Any questions up to this point? I hope it is clear to you. Now, next one, we want to talk about how to match. Now, for example, let's say I need the pets who born with the name B or start with B, right? We can say like this. For example, I can say select name, right, from pet where name, okay, like. So when you use like keyword, it's we used to support, for example, the values. So when I say B and percentage mark, it can select any arbitrary number of, characters. So you can see that you select the name of pets whose name starts, basically starts, we have B, which indicate that any arbitrary number. Similarly, let's say we need of F, we can put it like this. Now percentage mark here will select any number of characters, but if you use underscore, for example, it can select one single character. So let's say you start with F, I don't know whether this will work, 3, yes. So underscore will select, 3 characters. And with F4, right? So percentage mark will match to any number of characters, but underscore will be exactly one single character. So this is how we can use the selection. Okay, those who have finished up to this point, can you please raise your hands? Right, so in this particular case, we look at how pattern matching works in MySQL. We have to use with like and not like, comparison operators with the use of special characters, underscore for any single character and percentage used for any arbitrary number of characters. So if you want to start names with starting with B, we usually use B with a percentage value, which indicates any number of characters after B. If you want to have names end with FY, you start with the percentage symbol. That means you can have any number of characters, but at the end, you have to have FY. Let's say you want to find out any name containing the word W.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. So can I ask one question? So when you're using this percentage mark, is it case insensitive?
Of course, right? Including the particularly with including that one, right?
Yeah. So for example, in the screen, so we can see this browser, right? So for example, if I ask capital P percentage mark and the simple P percentage mark, so will that both be safe?
No. The problem is, yeah, it will be the same. The point is here, like it doesn't consider the case. Your question is whether it's a case sensitive, right?
Yeah.
No. So in this particular case, no. I mean, like you can see here, when I say W, for example, it works with lowercase w as well as uppercase W. So irrespective of the case, it will select.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
If you need like more advanced one, then we can go for the next part where we can use regular expressions, which means more advanced way of representing, including case whether uppercase or lowercase that we can specify. I'll come to that point. So, so the question was whether this is case sensitive. Like this is not case sensitive, which when you use W, irrespective whether you use capital W or simple W, it will actually match, the character. Similarly, the last one that we have discussed, use of 5 underscores, which underscore exactly match with one's character. So in this particular case, the pets with 5 characters are selected as the outcome of here. Right, more advanced matching. Now, when you want to match what we call the regular expressions, is actually have can be used for more advanced selection compared to the pattern matching. Now, when you want to match with this pattern, we have to use either regular expression or not regular expression operators, right? So which indicates that we are using regular expression, matching. Few things we need to understand before we talk about regular expressions. When you use a dot, it can match any single character, right? So dot indicates any single character. Then sometimes you can have what we call character classes. Now, usually when we talk about the character classes, we are using square brackets. Now, for example, if I use square bracket A to Z, it can match any lowercase letter. If I use square bracket 0 to 9, it can match any digit. So this is how it used for character classes. So obviously, if you use uppercase characters, then of course you have to use capital A to capital Z, right? So these are like what we call the character classes. Then we have to discuss number of characters. So I told you the dot represent single character, but if you use star, asterisk, it can match 0 or more, right? So when you say that 0 or more instances of the thing preceding it. For example, if you say X And then when you have asterisk, any number of X characters. 0 to 9, any number of digits. And if you say dot and asterisk, it can match any number of anything. We will work out with these examples. And finally, if you want to represent the beginning and the end, so the beginning we are using hat mark, the end we use dollar mark. Right? So let's look at some examples. So I'm going to get that here. So let's say select all from pet. Right now, this is what I have. Now, let's say pet, I'm going to have condition where, right? And remember, I told you, you have to use regular expression. And then we can have what we are going to match here, right? So we can use double quotes. And let's say we put B, right? Sorry. Let's say REGXP, REGXP.
Column name. So before the reg XP, we need to put the column name.
Yes, I forgot that. Thanks. Where from pet to where name. Yes, exactly. Thanks. Okay, so we put name. Let me put B earlier. So whenever you put B, we have it. I think in our example, we don't have any value with B, right? So let me put F. Right, okay. So when I put like this, it means, okay, if anywhere you have F, then it appears. But let's say I want to have F in the beginning, then we will use hat mark. Description, I told you this. So this, in this way, so it will select the beginning of F. Now, similarly, you remember we used Fy earlier. Let me put Fy. But if you want to say that, okay, Fy should be the end, then we have to put dollar. So regular expressions, right now we discuss. Hat mark will indicate that the beginning, the dollar mark will indicate the end. If I finish up to this point, please let me know.
So I have one more question. So when you put in these special characters like dollar mark and the other mark, so is there any like law for we must use double quotation or can we use single quotation? Like how to utilize single quotation and double quotation with the queries, with these queries? Like when to use double quotation and when to use single quotations?
Okay, good question. So I guess it depends on what we have right now. Let me check. So you can see here, it either works in both ways, but I think I have to check and get back to you exactly which one to use, but I think it depends on like in other places where we represent these string values. So these two represent usually in programming what we use is sometimes these characters could be part of the string. So both could be used most of the time if that character is not there. So I think that is also the case here as well. Maybe somebody's technical. Shanta, you have any answer for that?
For MySQL, I think we use both. It works in the conditions.
You mean the character representation? You can use either single quote or
Double quotes, yeah.
Except if the string contains single quotes or double quotes, then you have to use the other one. So that's
why they are allowing both, so that you can use interchangeably, or you can use escape characters.
right. To finish my today's session, let me have aggregate functions. And actually, I have more exclusive example. Just let me know whether you want to have that session as well. One of the Navate's book script I used to go from the beginning, but this is like something like the general basic SQL statement. So what I want actually to teach you that a complete example, something like this, where this will be your, what do you call, the assessment that I want to have, come up with a SQL script, something like this, where you create a database and create set of, tables, enter data, and then work with the foreign key constraints. So that part I couldn't do with the time, but I think it's okay because this particular course mainly aiming at comparing both relational databases and the NoSQL version. So I hope we can take one more session on SQL on focusing more on practical implementations where we using a script file, which I didn't have time to finish it for today. So the NoSQL part we can start later on, because first I think you should also understand how relational database works first, right? Today we focus only on one particular table, but we need to understand how multiple tables could be used as well. Right, let me use counting rows, especially aggregate functions. So for example, let's say if I want to know how many records are there in the pet, this is one way to use it. We can say select, and the count with asterisk will be aggregate function we use to count number of rows from table pet. So if that is the case, You will see in my case, I have entered only 5 records and it will give you 5 as the outcome. Okay, so last part is the batch file, which I don't have time, but I will go through the slide first. Have you finished up to this point? Okay, so let me go back to the slide. So this is the counting example. And this is what I want to actually start and talk about under that. So instead of just trying out one command at a time, usually we can write a script. And that is exactly what I want to have as your outcome, where I can have all the MySQL command that we have done in a script file, which I have showed you earlier, something like this. And this will automatically create a database, create tables, add data, you can do that. So usually we can use this, especially when we as a backing up data set as well. For example, there's a command called dump in MySQL where it will create a SQL file similar to this one, which later on we can use to restore the database. So how to use that? We will normally use all the commands in the text file. And then when you actually redirect this batch file commands into MySQL, it automatically, generate database and tables, which will be useful. And that part I will do in the next session. So if you ask me, is that's what we have? No, there are many things that we need to understand. And actually we can have a full course on MySQL. So this is only just the basic. And usually in regular database course, we can even talk about, things like triggers, views, use of, relational databases. But in this session, what we focus on is we just use the MySQL shell to create table and to create, simple SQL statement using SQL queries. So you need to refer more on MySQL if you are new to this, or if you are not, exposed to MySQL. I highly recommend that you should follow some online courses or some videos so that you know more on implementation details. But of course, I will have another session on implementing like several tables, creating constraints like foreign key constraints, for example. And briefly, I can talk about creating views, triggers, and so on. That part, for that, I will have another session. Okay, so for today's session, that's all I have prepared. I hope that was useful for those who have not, learned MySQL or you have not exposed. Others, I guess it will be a refresher for you. Any questions? Anything that you want to discuss more on this?
So that part of that assignment, that when will be the deadline for that? So
For the
last
implementation of
assignment
this, I think,
yes.
okay, so that will be in a couple of weeks time. So I will give you a couple of weeks for this. I don't think you can do it within a week or so. You need a couple of weeks. So I will put the deadline later on. Right now, the task is, so you have to extend your previous assignment and implement using SQL. So you can start looking at, okay, what tables you need to create, what fields are there, okay, what are their data types. If you're not familiar with the data types, you have to carefully select them. Then we have not discussed how to set up foreign keys. That part I will discuss in the coming session. Once we have completed that session, you will get a complete picture of creating relational databases. Okay.
It is also a group assignment or individual?
Okay. I think better you do it individually, but I can make it a group work. but because these parts, I think you should individually know everyone. So yeah, I highly recommend that you do it individually. But of course, you can get the help from the others. Okay, guys, then we'll meet next time. Hopefully, we will have sessions the next week. So next week, again, I have to take the remaining parts of this. Please go through the slides and come, and also the video I will upload.
Sure, sir. It will be the same time, right? Next week.
If you're fine with this time slot, I can have the same time. What do you think?